Jessica Hurov is the Alachua County Tourism Manager. In this role, she's responsible for the leadership of the Visitors and Convention Bureau, implementing the creative marketing strategy to attract tourists and enhance nature, culture, and sporting opportunities for Alachua County visitors and residents. Jessica has over 25 years of marketing, public relations, advertising, design, and event planning experience. She is experienced in multi-million-dollar budget oversight, stakeholder engagement, institutional organization, and personnel management. Prior to joining Alachua County, Jessica was the managing director of the Hippodrome Theater, where she managed business operations, including the oversight of their $2.5 million budget and marketing and development efforts. In that capacity, she was an engaged participant in the Alachua County Tourist Development Program grants for many years. Her previous experience includes working as a conference and event planner in Boston, which involved booking and managing logistics for large-scale international conferences and high-profile events. She has experience designing and creating customized packages for corporate incentive travel programs and working on marketing research studies for multinational brands. Her volunteer activities include work with the University of Florida's P.K. Young Performing Arts Program, the Gainesville Entertainment Sampler Coalition, and as a design partner for Dance Alive National Ballet. In 2014, she was awarded the Gainesville-Alachua County Cultural Affairs Board Individual Arts Award. Jessica graduated with honors from Boston University. Welcome, Jessica.
Thank you so much, Mark.
So, I wanted to have you on just to talk about the amazing stuff that was being done at the Visitor and Convention Bureau, Visit Gainesville, Alachua County. It's been about 30-some years since the Board of County Commissioners instituted the bed tax, and amazing things have happened, but we're particularly interested in just the phenomenal things that have been happening over the last couple of years. So why don't we start with just kind of helping folks understand the nuts and bolts of this. What is the economic impact of tourism in Alachua County, and just some of the numbers, total jobs, visitors, spending? Fill us in on that.
I'm happy to, and first let me just say thank you for having me on. I'm very honored to be a part of your program. In Alachua County, as many counties across the state, we are authorized to collect a 5% bed tax. This is a tax that is paid by our visitors, so it's not a tax on residents, it's not a tax that our local businesses pay. It's a tax that is brought in on any paid lodging, so that would be hotel, motel, even our short-term vacation rentals such as Airbnbs are paying the taxes
which
now.
Is a whole nother story.
It is.
We'll get into that later.
Okay, good. So with that, the county last year surpassed $5 million in collections, and our commission has directed us to reinvest that back into capital projects, into grant programs for arts, culture, nature groups, as well as local sports groups, and of course our own marketing and advertising budget and the operations of the Visitors Bureau.
How much does the bed tax generate?
So this past year in 2019, it generated over $5.5 million. And so we had record-setting lodging revenue. We had over $110 million that was paid by over 2 million visitors to the county. And so many times when I'm out in the community and I say we promote tourism in Gainesville and Alachua County, people say tourism here. They don't realize that we do host over 2 million people here. Right. And interestingly, in the last visitor study that was conducted, the number one aspect that they found favorable for their trip was the friendliness of our residents.
Oh, really?
So when we say what's good about Gainesville, Alachua County, we always think it's the people who live here who create such a sense of hospitality for our visitors.
Are you able to extrapolate these numbers into, I know there are formulas for this type of thing, but how many jobs are related to this type of activity?
So tourism and the hospitality industry in Alachua County accounts for over 6% of total jobs. and that's about 9,000 jobs within the county. So when we think of the service industry, we think of people who do work in the hotels, anywhere from management to maintenance, people who work in restaurants, people who work in transportation. And when we think of visitor spending, beyond transportation, which would be the ground travel or airline fare, the number one spending category after lodging would be our restaurants and eateries. So all of the economic impact that tourists bring here kind of permeates down within many business sectors.
In the hotel industry or short-term rental industry in general, I know the numbers are very good. I think this is a record-setting year in revenue for the bed tax, the tourist development tax. What's going on in hotels? I believe you're up in that area as well.
We are. So interestingly, developers have seen Alachua County as a very lucrative place to create new investments. We have had 7 new properties come into the market in the past 2 years. Those properties have brought over 1,000 new hotel rooms. And we are working every day to keep pace with this new inventory. We are up 7.2% in year-over-year bookings over 2018.
That's the actual nights that people have stayed in Alachua County is up over 7%.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. So that's actual room nights booked. And we have 3 new properties coming into the market in 2020. And then we keep watching what's coming into the pipeline to see. But right now, we're just working to keep pace with the inventory of rooms in the county.
So I want people to understand just what the bed tax is. Sometimes we'll be talking about a bed tax project, and I will get citizens who ask a question like, well, why don't you spend that money on roads, or why don't you spend that money on public safety? So talk to us a little bit about who pays the bed tax, you know, what it can be used for, how it's grown, and then I want to get an update on short-term rentals and some of the challenges you've had in the last year.
That sounds good. So the bed tax is paid by tourists, and the investment of it, once it's collected by the county, is governed by statute. So the bed tax isn't general fund revenue that could be spent on, like you're saying, roads or things that aren't directly related to the promotion and attraction of tourists.
So it doesn't go into the general fund.
That's right.
All the other revenue.
It's a designated funding source, and it's really reinvested back into the community, and it's back into marketing initiatives, and it can be invested into capital projects, as long as one of the primary purposes of the project is the attraction of tourists. And that is evidenced by the marketing and promotion of either that event or that venue or activity to tourists. And so that's how our commission invests the money, and we are charged with their vision and oversight of the funding source to execute that plan.
I know a recent challenge has been, where do organizations like Airbnb and some of the other short-term rentals where people put their homes or rental houses or whatever on the market, according to statute, from our reading of it, they're required to pay the bed tax, visitors that come in that way. So tell us a little bit about what's been going on with those rentals.
I'm happy to. So it is correct. The bed tax is collected on any short-term lodging, paid lodging under 6 months. And so with any kind of Airbnb or short-term vacation rental, they are required to collect and remit the tax to the Alachua County tax collector. So in May of 2019, our tax collector started a process where they were able to purchase proprietary software that locates and identifies short-term vacation rental hosts. And within the county, they identified 470 properties that were listed on any one of these platforms. I think there's more than 40 platforms. And so they started the process to send letters to just inform. The process was through education and information. So it started with letters to inform what is the bed tax you're required to collect and remit. And so from that, some of the homeowners who had listed their home said, oh, we didn't realize, we never rented it. We might have listed it just to see what it would be like. So about 100 right off the bat delisted.
Right.
And so then we were down to about 370 properties. And since then, they've registered over 250.
Right.
And so those homeowners, we created instructional videos on just an easy online platform to go ahead and create an account. You have to report every month. Even if your collection was 0, you still have to go in and report.
Sure.
And so we've registered about 250, and we still have a few more to go. So I want to say there's close to 100 still to be registered that the tax collector is working on another level of education and enforcement.
So this is a question of fairness and legality. I mean, you're required to pay this tax, and bed and breakfasts and hoteliers, people staying at those properties, pay the tax. And it's important to note that the Airbnb rental owners don't pay this.
Yes.
Their tenants pay this. So it's, it would have been preferable for Airbnb to provide this service to local short-term rental providers like they do with the state sales tax, but Airbnb chose not to. So Alachua County got proactive, and we're doing what's right here. Let's get into the fun stuff that you do in that office. Obviously, marketing is a massive piece of what you do. Statewide, regional, local. Tell us about your marketing efforts.
I'm happy to talk about the marketing because, like you say, it is a place where our team stretches their creative juices, and it's a way that we can kind of combine that right brain, left brain with both the strategic viewpoint of return on investment combined with how are we positioning the county? What's our messaging? Who's the target market that we're going after? And how are we not only reaching the consumers, but driving them to action? So it's not enough to really just spread the message. We want them to take action and spend their dollars here within the county and ideally stay overnight. Going back to some of what we were talking about, when it comes to marketing, we revert to the legal definition of a tourist under the Florida statute, which doesn't have a heads and beds component. It's a person who travels into the county from another county or from another country or another state. So as soon as someone who is not a resident of the county crosses into our line, into our border, they are technically a tourist. And so we advertise and market to, like you said, a regional audience. We are doing statewide and national campaigns. How we go about choosing the platforms that we advertise in kind of overlays the type of visitor that we believe is most likely to come here.
Sure.
So when we're looking at people, we're looking at those who would be interested in our natural resources, active outdoor recreation, arts and culture, attending theater, live music. We have a very vibrant, growing restaurant scene. We have our breweries. We have music festivals. So we have so many events and attractions to bring people here. What we see as our job is to package these, put them together into itineraries, into plans, and message that out to our potential visitor.
One thing that I love about what comes out of your office is the destination enhancement part of it.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about the arts, nature, culture grants and other ways to get involved in a grant process with the county?
Yes, I'd be thrilled to. So our commission has designated 1% of the bed tax, which we refer to as 1 penny, which is about $1.1 million annually at the current collection rate, toward grant programs. And so our department manages and administers these grant programs, one of which is the Nature and Culture Destination Enhancement Grant that this past year went to 29 organizations, And most recently, we just pulled together all of the numbers from the previous grant period, and those organizations hosted over 800,000 people and produced over 530 events. So the kind of multiplier effect that this funding provides to the community magnifies the ability of our department to be able to create the kind of programs that people do travel for. And these groups also have a percentage of their grant designated just to marketing and advertising. In that way, they're able to amplify our efforts when they're investing $250,000 of the bed tax money into marketing to tourists. They make our reach go farther and into more specialized audiences than we would be able to do with our current team.
Right. Well, and it makes the county a more interesting place to live for residents.
Yes.
That's the beauty in my mind of this whole grant program, is you create a place that is an amazing place to live, to work, to play, and we can support that, draw visitors in, but it's certainly a massive benefit to the people who live here as well.
So it's the win-win-win.
Yeah.
Our visitors win, we win because we're able to create more jobs and more economic impact through these organizations that are supported. And I wanted to just mention, we also have a sports destination enhancement grant.
Right.
An example of that recipient is Gainesville Area Rowing. We have the 5 Points of Life Marathon Weekend, which is a qualifying race for bigger marathons throughout the country. And we also have a conference grant program. And so one of the missions of our department that we're very interested in focusing on in the upcoming year is attracting more meetings and conferences. And so our commission has set aside a percentage of the bed tax as a conference grant. And groups can apply and receive up to $10,000 toward their meeting or event.
By the way, the mention of the sports grants is a good segue into our relationship with the Sports Commission. I know that your office is funded through 2 pennies of the bed tax, and that's for your marketing efforts, but also a good portion of that goes to the Sports Commission. Tell us about that relationship.
The Gainesville Sports Commission is an incredible partner. They have been a recipient of the bed tax since almost the inception of the collections within the county. They are charged with the mission of attracting large-scale sporting events here that draw visitors strictly through the heads and beds component. So when you see hundreds of cheerleaders in town, that's probably through a Sports Commission sponsored event. Or, for example, the Florida Pepsi Relays would be another one where they come in, they probably would stay for 2 to 3 nights, and they participate in sporting activities, mostly for youth. But we did host a senior games here last year, so it really runs the gamut of all age groups.
And of course they have those same multipliers, economic impact on the businesses in town. This interview is going too fast, but tell us about the Equestrian Center, the Canterbury Equestrian Center that the county recently acquired, and your relationship with it.
Yeah, so this was an incredibly exciting acquisition. Our county commission recently purchased the Canterbury Showplace and renamed it to Alachua County Agriculture and Equestrian Center. And we are currently booked up every weekend through May.
Wow.
And so we are able to host a variety of equestrian events, anything from dressage to hunter-rider to driving. We had a beautiful theatrical performance there in December that was called The Spirit of the Horse. And we will be closing in the summer, in June, to undergo major renovations. And
this is now the fairground. The Alachua County Youth Fair, the annual event, will be taking place there from now on. Is that correct?
I believe 4-H will be there, and it's in Newberry. So we had already been a major investor to Champions Park, which is a 16-field ballpark in Newberry, and this is a 5-minute drive, and it's a beautiful site. And we feel that through the bed tax investment at the Equestrian Center, we will have another completely diversified marketing opportunity to a new target population.
So I want to make sure we have time to talk about what's good.
Yes.
You know, for 30-something years, I and other people have frequently complained, why isn't there one place where you can go and figure out what's going on in the county? And you and your team have put together an amazing resource called What's Good. And I know you have tons of subscribers and tons of reach. Tell us a little bit about that.
So last April, our department convened a stakeholder workshop, and we drew together about 100 participants from our hotels, our restaurants, our attractions, event producers, and any interested party was invited and encouraged to attend. And one of the things that came out of that was there was a great need for training of frontline staff. So when you're staying in a hotel, the most important first interaction you may have is with that front desk person who's checking you in. And we heard feedback that sometimes they were being told there's nothing going on here, or I don't know what's going on.
Right.
So the inception came from how can we train and keep up to date frontline staff, whether you're a server in a restaurant or perhaps a bartender. How can you be marketing and promoting all that's good within the county to our visitors? And after a great deal of kind of throwing around ideas of, you know, how can we start educating and informing people, we came upon the idea for the weekly event guide. And we thought, well, if we are aggregating and curating the events and then working as hard as we can to disseminate that to as large a population as we possibly can.
Both in the county and out of the county?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we started from that sort of seed, which was how are we getting this into the hands of our frontline service workers? But then we transmuted that into a consumer product. So around May or June, we got our first consumer-facing version of the event guide going out. Around that time, we had approximately 5,000 email signups. And we started promoting it actively on social media. And we started going out, doing outreach at festivals, events. We were out at homecoming. We're going down to the villages tomorrow. And so we're kind of boots on the ground getting signups while all of the marketing efforts are driving people to this landing page. And so the name What's Good has an interesting story because we are the visitor center for the county, so we frequently have people coming every day from anywhere you can imagine, and they'll come in the office and say to our staff, you know, I'm here for a couple of days or I'm here for the week, and what's good?
Yeah.
What's good to do while I'm here?
Yeah.
And so we felt, okay, that's what people want to know, and we can provide that answer. And so since then, it's kind of taken on a life of its own. And it has filled a segment in the marketplace that no one had been filling. And it has become one of our signature products that we can aggressively market and promote to potential visitors. And one of the constituents, one of the groups we go after would be Gator alumni through their alumni magazine.
Right.
And like I said, we're going down to the villages. We promote it on WUFT. So we have a campaign that runs simultaneous to the newsletter or the event guide going out that also will share highlights of activities taking place. And we just had an email on Friday of last week from someone in Nevada who's planning a trip to Alachua County. And she said she had no idea, you know, there was this level of possibilities for her stay here. So it's getting out there, and it's one of the top returned items on a Google search for Alachua County.
And it's a very nice T-shirt, too. I should have worn the What's
Oh,
Good
right.
T-shirt to the show. So your office does an enormous amount of amazing work, and you've put together, I think, a really stellar team. Tell us a little bit about your staff.
I feel like we have the A team on every level.
Yeah.
So we have our advertising and marketing team, which consists of Liz Reyes and Sean Plemons, and together they bring over 35 years, if not more, of advertising and strategic planning on campaign-driven investments for the county. And we have Jody Bigger, who is the newest member, and she specializes in outreach and conferences. So now that she's on board, we have a designated person who is solely focused on increasing conferences and meetings in the county. And we have our visitor outreach specialists, which include Mr. GNV himself, Joe Antonelli, who will always be the most welcoming, warm face out at the airport.
Yeah.
And we have a kiosk at the airport, which is a great source of information about everything going on. And we have Sherry Graves in the office, who performs the same function when people come in to the office at 33 North Main Street. And then we mentioned earlier about our grant programs, and that takes a very dedicated administrator, which is Kathy Munden. And Kathy works with all of the groups, and she makes sure that not only are they in compliance with the direction of the board in terms of the expenditures, but that we are working with them in the highest level of partnership possible. And I truly feel like partnership leads to collaboration, which leads to growth and progress and opportunities. So it's through the many partnerships that this team brings from the community back to the department, and through that into the investment of the bed tax for the county.
We're just about out of time. You mentioned the Equestrian Center, and I thought I would just throw in that a big part of the bed tax are the capital projects that you mentioned earlier. Some examples of that over the years is the County Commission, through the bed tax, contributed over $1 million to the Cade Museum. They've done improvements at the City of Gainesville's MLK Center. They've helped with the recreation complex in the city of Alachua. You mentioned Champions Sports Park in Newberry. So the bed tax, you know, there are grants, there are capital projects, there are the amazing efforts in your office. And I just wanted to say thank you for the great work you do, and thank you for being here today.
Thanks.
Don't wait. Communicate. Make your emergency plan today.